She stopped begging for warmth the moment cold became kinder than memory. The snow had been falling for 3 days without mercy. Ilara Winterborn knelt in the center of the frozen forest clearing, her knees buried beneath 6 inches of white silence. Her breath came in shallow clouds that dissipated before they could rise. She wore no coat, no gloves. The thin cotton dress that clung to her frame had long since frozen to her skin, stiff as a burial shroud. She had stopped shivering hours ago. That was when she knew. The human body fights cold with violence, tremors, spasms, desperate heat. But when the body surrenders, when it accepts its fate, the shivering stops. The mind grows quiet. The world becomes soft. Death, she had learned, was not the roar she expected. It was a lullaby sung in white. Ilara closed her eyes and let the snow gather on her lashes. She thought of the cottage she'd fled, the locked door, the man who said he loved her while his fists proved otherwise. She thought of the neighbors who heard her screams and closed their curtains. She thought of the priest who told her suffering was holy, that endurance was a woman's cross to bear. She had endured, and endurance had led her here, to this clearing, this silence, this mercy. "Let it end," she whispered to the forest. "Please, let it end." The wind answered with a gust so cold it felt like teeth. And then, stillness. The snow stopped falling mid-air, suspended like stars frozen in their descent. The wind died. The forest held its breath. Ilara opened her eyes. A shadow moved between the trees. Not a bear, not a wolf. Something taller, something that walked upright but moved with the fluid grace of smoke. The darkness seemed to gather around it, pooling at its feet, rising like a cloak woven from the absence of light itself. She should have been afraid. She felt nothing. The figure stepped into the clearing, and the moonlight, pale, reluctant, revealed him. He was a man, or had been once. Tall, broad-shouldered, with black hair that fell past his collar, and eyes the color of winter storms, silver-gray, ancient, heavy with something that looked like grief. His face was carved from marble and shadow, beautiful in the way ruins are beautiful, haunting, undeniable, marked by time that refused to destroy. He wore a coat that seemed stitched from midnight itself, long and sweeping, edges dissolving into mist. He looked at her, and his expression cracked, just for a moment, into something raw. "You're dying," he said. His voice was low, textured like velvet dragged across stone. "I know," Ilara whispered. "Why?" She laughed, a brittle, broken sound. "Because no one stopped me." His jaw tightened. He knelt before her, slowly, as if approaching something sacred or shattered. Up close, she could see the impossibility of him. Skin too pale, too flawless, breath that didn't fog in the freezing air. Veins like ink beneath marble. "You came here to die," he said quietly. "I came here to stop hurting." His eyes closed. When they opened again, they burned with something she couldn't name, fury perhaps, or sorrow so old it had calcified into rage. "I know that feeling," he said. Ilara's vision blurred. Her heartbeat was slow, sluggish, a drum winding down. "Then you understand." "I do." He reached toward her, hesitated, then gently brushed the snow from her hair. His fingers were cold, impossibly cold, but somehow they didn't hurt. "But I also know what comes after." "Heaven?" she asked, voice fading. "Regret?" Before she could respond, he moved. In one fluid motion, he swept the cloak from his shoulders and wrapped it around her. The fabric was impossibly soft, impossibly warm, and it seemed to pulse with life, or the memory of it. Heat flooded her limbs, brutal and sudden, dragging her back from the edge. She gasped, lungs burning. "No," she choked. "No, please." "Forgive me," he murmured, lifting her into his arms as if she weighed nothing. But I cannot stand here and watch another innocent choose what I was forced to become. Alara tried to fight, but her body betrayed her, clinging to the warmth, to the strength of his hold. "Who are you?" He began walking, carrying her through the snow as if the forest itself parted for him. "My name is Kalen Nightshade," he said softly, "and I am the reason this forest does not sleep." Her eyes fluttered closed, consciousness slipping. The last thing she heard was his voice, low and aching. "You begged the forest for death, but death sent me instead, and I am far more stubborn." Ilara opened her eyes to firelight. She lay in a bed so soft it felt like clouds, wrapped in furs and blankets that smelled of cedar and smoke. A fire roared in a stone hearth the size of a doorway, casting dancing shadows across walls lined with books, thousands of them, leather-bound and ancient, stacked floor to ceiling. She sat up slowly, her body aching but alive. The room was vast, Gothic, beautiful. Arched windows revealed a sky still thick with falling snow, but inside, warmth pressed against her skin like a living thing. Candles burned in iron sconces, their flames steady and golden. "Where am I?" A door creaked open. Kalen entered, carrying a silver tray. He'd changed, no longer wearing the shadow cloak, but a simple black shirt and trousers that somehow made him look more human and less so at the same time. His movements were precise, careful, as if he'd practiced being gentle for centuries. "You're awake?" he said, setting the tray on a table beside the bed. Steam rose from a porcelain cup. "Drink. It's tea. Chamomile, honey, a touch of mint. Nothing more." Alara stared at him. "You're real. Disappointingly so." She should have been terrified, should have demanded answers, escape, explanations. Instead, she asked, "Why did you save me?" Kalen's expression shuddered. He turned toward the fire, hands clasped behind his back. "Because 300 years ago, I stood where you stood, and no one stopped me." Silence settled between them, heavy and holy. "You're a vampire," Alara said quietly. "Yes. And this is your castle. One of them." She pulled the blankets tighter. "Are you going to kill me?" He looked at her then, and the grief in his eyes was so profound it felt like falling. "No, I have killed many things in my long existence, Miss Winterbourne, but I will not add you to that list." "How do you know my name?" "Your dress had embroidery on the hem." "EW?" I made an educated guess. He gestured to the tea. "Please, drink. You were hypothermic. Your body needs warmth." Alara obeyed, lifting the cup with trembling hands. The tea was perfect, sweet, soothing, exactly what her frozen bones craved. "Why did you say you understand?" she asked after a moment. Kalen was silent so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Because I, too, once loved someone who hurt me. And I believed, as you did, that suffering was proof of devotion, that if I endured long enough, I would be rewarded with change." His voice dropped. "I was wrong. And by the time I realized it, I was already dead." Alara's throat tightened. "What happened?" "My maker found me dying in an alley, beaten by the man I'd called my lord. She turned me out of pity. And I have spent 3 centuries wondering if her mercy was kindness or cruelty." "Do you regret it?" Ilara whispered. "Living?" Kalen turned to face her fully. "Every single day. Until tonight." Something shifted in the air between them. Fragile, dangerous, impossibly tender. "I don't understand," she said. "Neither do I." He moved closer, kneeling beside the bed so they were eye level. "But when I saw you in that clearing, I felt something I haven't felt in centuries." "What?" "Hope." Alara's breath caught. "I don't want to live," she confessed, tears spilling. "I'm so tired. I'm so broken. I don't know how to be whole again." Kalen reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he wiped a tear from her cheek with infinite gentleness. "Then don't be whole," he said softly. "Be honest, be exhausted, be angry, but don't be gone. Not yet." "Why do you care?" His smile was sad, ancient. "Because you remind me of who I was, and I refuse to let another innocent believe their only value is their ability to suffer." Alara closed her eyes, leaning into his touch despite every instinct screaming that she shouldn't trust, shouldn't hope, shouldn't believe. But his hand was cool and steady, and for the first time in years, she didn't flinch. "Stay," Kaelin murmured. "Not forever, just tonight. Let yourself be warm, let yourself breathe, and tomorrow we'll see if the world still feels impossible." Alara opened her eyes. "And if it does, then I'll stand with you in it." She didn't know why she believed him, but she did. Morning came with unexpected gentleness. Alara woke to sunlight filtering through heavy velvet curtains, weak and winter-pale but present. She'd expected darkness. Wasn't that what vampires required? But Kaelin's castle defied her assumptions at every turn. She found him in the library. He sat in a wingback chair by a towering window, a leather-bound book open in his lap, reading by the gray light of snow-laden clouds. He looked up when she entered, and something softened in his expression. "You slept," he observed. "I did." Alara pulled a blanket tighter around her shoulders. "I didn't think I would." The body knows when it's safe, even when the mind doesn't believe it yet. She moved closer, studying him in daylight. He didn't sparkle or burn. He simply looked tired, ancient tired, the kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying centuries of memory. "You're not afraid of the sun," she said. "I'm old enough that daylight merely inconveniences me. Burns, but doesn't destroy. Youth is fragile. Age is stubborn." He closed the book. "Did you sleep well?" "Better than I have in years." "Good." Silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, but weighted with questions neither knew how to ask. Finally, Alara spoke. "What do you want from me?" Kaelin looked genuinely surprised. "Want? You saved me. You brought me to your home. You're being kind. There has to be a reason." His expression hardened, not at her, but at something invisible. "You've been taught that kindness always has a price. Hasn't it? Not from me." He stood, setting the book aside. "Miss Winterbourne, Alara, I want nothing from you except this. Give yourself time, 7 days. Stay here, rest, heal, eat warm food, sleep in a bed that doesn't hurt. And if, after 7 days, you still wish to return to that forest," his voice cracked, "I will not stop you." Alara's eyes burned. "Why 7 days?" "Because that's how long it took me to realize I didn't want to die. I wanted the pain to end, and those are different things." She sank into the chair opposite him, knees drawn to her chest. "What if the pain doesn't end?" "Then we find ways to make it bearable. Music, books, silence, company, whatever you need." He paused. "I have spent 300 years alone because I believed I deserved solitude, that my monstrosity required isolation. But you, Alara, you are not a monster. You are someone who has been brutalized into believing you are." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I don't know how to stop believing it." "Then let me believe it for you. Until you're strong enough to believe it yourself." Something in her chest cracked open, not breaking, but blooming. "What do immortals fear most?" she asked suddenly. Kaelin's gaze grew distant. "Forgetting. Not facts or names, those are easy. But forgetting what it feels like to be human. To be hurt, yes, but also to be saved, to be surprised, to feel hope rise in your chest like a bird taking flight." He looked at her. "You reminded me of that, in the snow, when you should have been afraid of me, but instead you looked relieved." "I was," she admitted. "I thought you were death." "I am death. Just a very particular kind." the kind that refuses to let go too soon. Ilara laughed, shocked by the sound, by the fact that laughter still lived inside her. Kalen smiled, and it transformed his face. Suddenly, he didn't look like a creature. He looked like a man who'd forgotten how to be gentle and was learning again. "Will you stay?" he asked. 7 days, just 7. Ilara looked around the library, at the books, the fire, the snow falling softly outside. At this impossible vampire who saved her for no reason, except that he remembered what it felt like to need saving. 7 days, she whispered. 7 days, he agreed. And for the first time since she could remember, the future didn't feel like drowning. It felt like breathing. And now I invite you to leave a trace of your presence in the comments. Tell us where in the world you're watching from, and the exact hour you hear this story. We wish to know how far these immortal confessions travel, and at what moments of the night they find you. On the 3rd day, Kalen showed her the room of lost things. "Every immortal becomes a curator," he said, unlocking a door at the castle's eastern wing. "We cannot die, so we collect what does." The room was vast, circular, lit by hundreds of candles in wall sconces. Shelves lined the walls, but instead of books, they held objects: a child's wooden horse, a soldier's medal, a wedding ring on a velvet cushion, a dried rose pressed in glass, letters tied with ribbon, a pocket watch frozen at 3:47. Ilara moved through the space slowly, reverently, as if walking through a cathedral of sorrow. "What are these?" she whispered. "Memories, farewells, things left behind by people I couldn't save." Kalen stood in the doorway, arms crossed, expression guarded. "I told you I've lived 300 years. I didn't tell you how many times I've failed." She stopped before a small music box. "May I?" He nodded. She opened it. A delicate melody spilled out, sweet, haunting, incomplete. The mechanism had rusted, causing the tune to skip and stutter. "It belonged to a girl named Marie," Kalen said quietly. 1823. She was 16. Her father sold her to a brothel to pay gambling debts. I found her the night she tried to drown herself in the Seine. He paused. I pulled her out, brought her here, fed her, gave her safety. And for 3 weeks, she seemed to heal. Ilara closed the music box gently. "What happened?" "She left, went back. She said she couldn't live with the weight of being saved when so many others weren't. A month later, I found this music box in her room at the brothel. She'd left it for me with a note. 'Thank you for trying.'" Silence pressed down like snow. "Did she survive?" Ilara asked. "No." Kalen's voice was flat, hollow. "Cholera took her a year later." Ilara turned to face him. "You think you failed her?" "I know I did. No." She moved closer. "You gave her 3 weeks of safety, 3 weeks of peace. That's more than most of us ever get." Kalen's jaw tightened. It wasn't enough. "It was everything." Ilara's voice broke. "Don't you see? You're not keeping these objects because you failed. You're keeping them because they mattered. Because they mattered. And someone needs to remember them." His eyes glistened, not with tears, but with something older, deeper, sharper. "I have a room like this too," Ilara admitted softly. "Where?" "In my mind." She looked down at her hands. "I collect moments where I was kind, where I helped someone, smiled at a stranger, baked bread for a neighbor, and I hold them like talismans. Because they're proof that I'm not just the things done to me." Kalen crossed the room in 3 strides and took her hands. "You're not," he said fiercely. "You are not defined by your suffering. You are defined by your compassion despite it, by your ability to see beauty in a music box when you yourself are breaking. That is who you are, Ilara Winterborn." She looked up at him, at this ancient creature with storm-gray eyes who somehow saw her more clearly than anyone living ever had. "Why do you care so much?" she asked. Because you are the first person in 300 years who looked at my collection of failures and called them love. Something ignited between them. Recognition, perhaps, or the terrifying realization that they'd both been collecting pieces of the same brokenness. I'm scared, Ilara confessed, of me, of hoping, of believing things can be different. Because if I hope, and I'm wrong, her voice cracked, I don't think I'll survive it. Kaelin lifted her hands to his lips and pressed a kiss to her knuckles, gentle, reverent, heartbreakingly chaste. Then don't hope for different, he murmured. Hope for bearable, hope for one more day, hope for a moment where the pain is less, and let me carry the rest. Ilara closed her eyes, tears spilling. I don't deserve this, she whispered. Neither do I, but we're here anyway, together, and maybe that's enough. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his chest. He stood perfectly still, barely breathing, as if afraid any movement would shatter the moment. Thank you, she said finally, for the music box, for the room, for remembering Marie. Thank you, he replied, voice rough, for reminding me why I saved her. And in that room of lost things, surrounded by centuries of grief, two broken souls began to believe that maybe, just maybe, they'd been found. On the fifth night, a storm descended. Thunder shook the castle's stone bones, lightning split the sky in jagged silver, illuminating the library where Ilara and Kaelin sat by the fire, a chessboard between them. Your move, she said, studying the pieces. Kaelin moved his knight. You're learning quickly. I had a good teacher. Flatterer. She smiled, and realized with a start that smiling no longer felt like betrayal. For 5 days she'd existed in this impossible pocket of safety, eating warm food, reading ancient books, talking with a vampire who listened as if her words were scripture. She'd stopped flinching when he entered rooms. She'd started sleeping without nightmares. And tonight, watching him by firelight, she realized something terrifying. She didn't want to leave. Kaelin? Can immortals love? His hand froze over a chess piece. Slowly, he withdrew it, leaning back in his chair. That's a dangerous question, he said quietly. Why? Because the answer is complicated. Try me. Kaelin was silent for a long moment, gaze fixed on the flames. When he spoke, his voice was low, textured with centuries. Vampires can love, but we love the way glaciers move, slowly, inevitably, with a force that reshapes landscapes. Human love is wildfire. Vampire love is continental drift. It takes decades to recognize, centuries to understand. And once it settles, he looked at her. It never leaves. Ilara's breath caught. Never? Never. We do not fall in love. We are buried by it, fossilized within it, transformed completely. And because we cannot die, we cannot escape it. It becomes the architecture of our eternity. That sounds like a curse. It is. Unless the love is returned, then it's salvation. Thunder rumbled, closer now. Have you ever loved someone? Ilara asked. Kaelin's expression shuddered. Once, a very long time ago. What happened? He died. The word hung between them, simple, brutal, final. I'm sorry, Ilara whispered. So am I. Kaelin's jaw tightened. His name was Thomas. We met in 1804. He was a physician, gentle, intelligent, too kind for the world we inhabited. I revealed what I was after 2 years of courtship, expecting horror. Instead, he asked if I was lonely. A ghost of a smile. I said yes. He said, Then we have that in common. Ilara's chest ached. How long were you together? 47 years. I watched him age, hair graying, hands trembling, eyes dimming. And every year, he asked if I would turn him. Every year, I refused. Why? Because I loved him too much to damn him. Kaelin's voice cracked. Immortality is not a gift, Ilara. it is exile. I would not condemn the man I loved to an eternity of watching everyone he cared for wither and die. So I let him remain human. I let him age, and when he died, I held him, and I wept, and I— He stopped, unable to continue. Ilara moved around the chessboard and knelt before him, taking his cold hands in hers. "Where is he now?" she asked gently. "Buried in London, Highgate Cemetery. I visit every decade." His eyes glistened. "I still speak to him. Tell him about the world, the changes, the losses, and every time I apologize for not turning him." "Do you regret it?" "Every day, but I also know," his voice steadied, "that if I had turned him, he would have regretted it. Thomas loved medicine because he loved helping people heal. Vampirism would have stolen that from him. So I gave him a mortal life of purpose instead of an immortal one of regret." "That's love," Ilara said softly, "letting someone stay human." Kaelin looked at her then, truly looked, as if seeing her for the first time. "You understand," he murmured. "You actually understand." "Of course I do. Love isn't possession, it's protection, even when protection means letting go." His hand rose to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with aching tenderness. "I'm terrified of you," he confessed. "Why?" "Because when I look at you, I feel the same pull I felt with Thomas, that glacial, inevitable certainty. And I cannot, will not, lose another person He stopped himself, but the word hung between them, unspoken but deafening. "Love." "I'm not asking you to love me," Ilara said, though her heart screamed the opposite. "I'm just asking you to let me stay, for as long as you'll have me." "Ilara, I know what I am, broken, mortal, insignificant. But here, with you, I feel like I matter, like my life has purpose beyond surviving the next beating. And if that makes me selfish, then I'm selfish." Kaelin's expression crumbled. "You are not selfish. You are extraordinary, and His voice dropped to a whisper. "I would give anything to deserve you." "Then don't try to deserve me," she said, leaning into his touch. "Just let me be here, with you, in this impossible castle, for whatever time we have." Outside, the storm raged. Inside, something ancient and broken began to mend. 7 days, Kaelin murmured. "You said you'd give me 7 days." "I lied," Ilara said, smiling through tears. "I want more." His laugh was broken, beautiful. "Then stay. Stay as long as you want. Stay forever if you'll have me." "Forever," she echoed. And the word tasted like forever should. Terrifying, impossible, and exactly right. On the 7th day, Ilara asked to see his scars. They stood in his chambers, a vast room of dark wood and darker shadows, where moonlight spilled through arched windows onto a bed that looked centuries old. Kaelin had been reading when she entered, but he set the book aside when he saw her expression. "What is it?" he asked. "Show me," she said quietly. "Show you what?" "Your scars, the marks that made you. I want to see what immortality costs." Kaelin went very still. "Ilara, please, you've seen mine, the bruises, the fear. You've let me exist here without judgment, without expectation. Let me see you the same way." Something shifted in his expression, vulnerability perhaps, or the realization that he'd been seen. Slowly, he unbuttoned his shirt. His torso was a map of violence. White scars crisscrossed his ribs, faded but present. A brutal mark over his heart, something that looked like a stake wound. Burn marks on his shoulders, and at his collarbone, barely visible, 2 puncture scars, his maker's bite. Ilara moved closer, tracing a scar over his ribs with gentle fingers. "Who did this?" "My lord, the man I loved before I understood what love was. He beat me for existing, for breathing too loud, for failing to anticipate his needs." Kaelin's voice was flat, distant. I thought if I was perfect, he'd stop. I was wrong. She traced the stake wound over his heart. And this? A vampire hunter, 1847. He caught me feeding and drove a stake through my ribs. Missed my heart by an inch. I killed him. It was the first time I'd killed a human outside of feeding. His eyes closed. I can still hear him screaming. And the burns? Sunlight, early in my transformation. I didn't know the rules yet. Walked outside at noon and burst into flames. My maker saved me, but the scars remained. He opened his eyes. Vampire bodies heal everything except the wounds that made us. Those stay, reminders. Ilara's fingers found the bite marks at his collarbone. Does it hurt when you're turned? It's the worst pain imaginable. Fire in your veins, death and rebirth happening simultaneously. You feel your heart stop, your lungs collapse, your humanity drain away, and then... He paused. You wake up, and you're something else, something hungry, something wrong. Do you still feel human? Sometimes, when I'm with you. His hand covered hers. You make me remember what it felt like to want to live. Ilara looked up at him, this ancient, scarred creature who somehow made her feel safe. I have scars too, she said softly. Not like yours, but they're there. I know. Do they disgust you? No. His voice was fierce. They make me want to find every person who ever hurt you and show them what real monsters look like. She laughed, a broken, startled sound. You're very protective. I've had 300 years to practice. Ilara's expression grew serious. Kaylin, what happens now? I've stayed 7 days. You offered me forever, but what does that mean? I'm human. I'm going to age, wither, die, and you will remain. His jaw tightened. I know. So what do we do? Kaylin was silent for a long moment. Then, we live, day by day, year by year. We fill your mortal life with warmth and safety and joy. We travel, read, argue over chess, watch the seasons change. And when the time comes, his voice cracked. I will hold you as you leave, and I will remember you for the rest of eternity. Tears spilled down Ilara's cheeks. That's not fair to you. Neither is turning you. I won't steal your humanity because I'm too selfish to let you go. Thomas deserved his mortal life. So do you. But you'll be alone again. I've been alone for 300 years. I can survive it. What I can't survive is damning you to this. He gestured to himself. Existence. You deserve sunlight, children, grandchildren, a natural death, not endless night. Ilara pressed her palm over the scar above his heart. What if I want endless night? What if I want you more than I want mortality? His hand covered hers, holding it against his chest. Ask me again in 50 years. If you still want it then, I'll turn you. But not before you've lived. 50 years is a long time. An eternity is longer. He kissed her forehead. Let me give you the life I never had. Please. Ilara closed her eyes, leaning into him. And you promise you'll stay? Even when I'm old and gray, and I will love you when your hair is white and your hands shake. When you forget my name and need help walking. I will love you through every stage of your mortal life. And when you leave me, his voice broke, I will love you through eternity. That's a promise? That's a vow. And standing in his chambers, surrounded by shadows and moonlight, Ilara Winterborn, broken, frozen, once dying girl from the snow, made a choice. She chose life. She chose love. She chose him. Then show me, she whispered. Show me how to live. Kaylin smiled, achingly, beautifully, impossibly. I will show you everything. If this story has already captured you, leave a like. It helps the voices of those who chose eternity reach more hearts. Spring came slowly to Kaylin's mountains. Snow melted into silver streams. Wildflowers pushed through thawing earth. Birds returned, filling the forest with song. And Alara, who'd arrived broken and frozen, bloomed. She learned to ride horses through the mountain passes, to read Latin and French, to paint watercolors by candlelight, to bake bread that made even Kalen, who couldn't eat, smile at the smell. She learned his routines, how he hunted deer once a week, merciful and quick. How he avoided villagers but left firewood at their doors. How he wrote letters to people long dead, practicing forgiveness he'd never received. And Kalen learned her favorite tea, Earl Grey with honey. The songs she hummed while painting, folk ballads from her childhood. The nightmares that still woke her, memories of locked doors and closing fists. The way she relaxed when he read to her, his voice low and steady, anchoring her. By summer, they'd fallen into a rhythm so natural it felt inevitable. One evening, as fireflies danced outside the library windows, Alara looked up from her book. "Kalen? What do immortals dream about?" He set down his own book, considering. Mortals who taught us we weren't monsters, moments we wish we could undo, people we couldn't save. He paused. "You." Her breath caught. "Me. Every night since I found you, I dream you're still in the snow. And I'm too late." Alara crossed to his chair and knelt beside him, taking his hand. "But you weren't. You found me, saved me, gave me a life I never imagined possible. I gave you safety. You created a life." "With you," she corrected. "Because of you." Kalen's thumb traced circles on her palm. "Do you ever regret it? Staying?" "Never." She hesitated. "Do you regret saving me?" "Only when I remember you'll leave eventually." Silence settled, comfortable, but tinged with the inevitable. 50 years, Alara said softly. "That's what you asked for. A mortal life before I could choose immortality." "I remember. I've been here 6 months. It feels like 6 years. Like I've lived more in this castle than I did in 23 years outside it." Kalen's expression grew guarded. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying time is different here, with you. Every day feels full, important. I'm learning, growing, healing. But I'm also," she struggled for words, "I'm falling, in love with you." The confession hung between them like a held breath. Kalen closed his eyes, jaw tight. "Alara, I know what you're going to say, that I'm young, that I'm confusing safety with love, that you're too damaged, too dangerous, too cursed. But you're wrong." Her voice steadied. "I love you because you're broken and still kind, because you could have left me in the snow but didn't, because every day you choose to be gentle when the world taught you violence. That's not confusion, that's clarity." "I am 300 years old," Kalen said hoarsely. "I have killed, fed on innocence, watched everyone I've ever cared for die. I am not." "You are exactly who I choose," Alara interrupted. "Scars and all, centuries and all, darkness and all." He opened his eyes and they glistened. "I don't deserve you." "You keep saying that. When will you believe me when I say you do?" "When I can look in a mirror and see what you see." Ilara smiled sadly. "Vampires can't see themselves in mirrors." "Exactly." She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. "Then I'll be your mirror. I'll show you who you are until you believe it." Kalen's hands rose to cradle her face. "You undo me." "Good. Maybe you need undoing." His laugh was broken, beautiful. "I love you. I've loved you since the moment I saw you kneeling in the snow, choosing death with more dignity than most people choose life. And I will love you for the rest of time. But you're terrified I'll regret it." "Yes." Alara kissed his palm. "Then we have 50 years for you to stop being terrified, and for me to prove I mean it. And if in 50 years you still want eternity, then you'll turn me, and we'll have forever. Forever is a long time to be loved by someone like me. Good thing I'm planning on it. Kalen pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she were made of starlight and spider silk, precious, fragile, impossibly his. You've given me a reason to keep existing, he murmured into her hair. For 300 years I survived out of stubbornness, but now, his voice cracked, now I'm living because I want to see what happens next. Alara smiled against his chest. Spoiler, we happen next. Best plot twist of my existence. And in that library, surrounded by centuries of collected memories and grief, two souls who'd been drowning found each other and learned to breathe. 20 years passed like chapters in a beloved book. Ilara aged gracefully, laugh lines at her eyes, silver threads in her dark hair, a confidence that came from decades of being cherished. She published poetry under a pseudonym, corresponded with scholars, adopted orphans from nearby villages, giving them safety until they were ready to face the world. Kalen remained unchanged, ageless, watchful, devoted. He built her a conservatory for her plants, commissioned portraits of her at every stage, sat beside her during illnesses, reading aloud until she slept. They traveled, Paris, Vienna, Venice, always at night, always carefully. They danced in ballrooms empty except for moonlight, made love in castles and caves and wild mountain meadows, learning each other's bodies with a tenderness that felt holy. And every year, on the anniversary of the night he found her, they returned to the clearing. The forest had changed. Saplings had become trees, paths had shifted, but the clearing remained, snow-covered each winter, a cathedral of white silence. This year, on their 20th anniversary, Alara stood at its center, 43 years old and radiant. I was dying here, she said softly, and now I'm more alive than I've ever been. Kalen stood behind her, arms wrapped around her waist. You saved yourself. I just gave you time. We saved each other. They stood in comfortable silence, watching snow fall. Then Alara said, I want you to show me something. What? Your graveyard. Kalen went still. Why? Because you've shown me your library of lost things, your scars, your memories. But you haven't shown me where you bury them. He was silent for a long moment. Then, it's not a place people enjoy visiting. I don't want to enjoy it. I want to understand you completely, all of you. Kalen studied her, this mortal woman who'd somehow become the axis his eternity revolved around, and nodded. Then I'll show you. The graveyard was hidden deep in the forest, surrounded by ancient oaks and iron gates covered in moss. Headstones stood in crooked rows, names worn smooth by centuries of weather. Everyone I've saved and lost, Kalen said quietly, gesturing to the graves. Marie, Thomas, dozens of others, people I pulled from rivers, alleys, battlefields. Some lived long lives, others didn't, but they all mattered. Alara walked among the headstones, reading inscriptions. Marie Duchamp, 1807-1824. She danced even when the world gave her no music. Thomas Sinclair, 1782-1851. He taught me that love is letting go. Anna Kovich, 1899-1920. Too much light for too little time. Tears slipped down Alara's cheeks. You remember all of them. Every single one. She stopped before a blank stone, newer than the others, polished marble without inscription. Who is this for? She asked. Kalen's voice was barely audible. You, someday. Alara turned to face him. You've already prepared my grave. I've been preparing it for 19 years. The moment I realized I loved you, I knew I'd lose you. So I started writing your eulogy, your headstone, practicing your funeral. His voice cracked. I'm trying to be ready, but I'm not. I'll never be. Ilara crossed to him, taking his face in her hands. Then don't be ready, be present, be here, with me, for however long we have. 30 years left, maybe 40 if we're lucky. Then 30 years of mornings where I wake up next to you. 30 years of arguments over chess. 30 years of loving you so thoroughly you can't doubt it. And then? Then you keep your promise. You turn me, and we have eternity. Kaylin's hands covered hers. You're certain? No regrets? No wondering what could have been? I've had 20 years to wonder, 20 years to doubt. And every single day, I've chosen you. That won't change. You'll lose the sun. I've lived in your night. It's more beautiful than any dawn. You'll lose your humanity. I'll gain forever with you. Fair trade. Kaylin pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I don't want to be the reason you stop being human. You're the reason I learned what being human means. Choosing love over fear. Choosing life over surrender. Choosing to become something new instead of staying something broken. He pulled back, studying her. 30 more years, then I'll turn you, not before. Deal. She smiled. Think you can handle 30 more years of me? His laugh was watery. I've handled 20. What's 10 more decades? Centuries, she corrected. Centuries, he agreed, kissing her forehead. Forever. And standing in his graveyard of lost souls, beneath trees that had witnessed centuries of grief, Ilara Winterborn made peace with her future grave and the eternity that would follow. Like if you'd trade your name on a headstone for your name carved in someone's heart. 50 years passed. Ilara Winterborn, 73 years old, silver-haired, elegant, sat in Kaylin's library, rereading Thomas's letters. She'd found them years ago, carefully preserved, and had adopted the tradition of reading them each winter. He had beautiful handwriting, she observed. Kaylin, unchanged at her side, smiled. He had beautiful everything. Do you still miss him? Every day, but differently now. You've taught me that love doesn't end. It transforms. I carry him here. He touched his chest. And soon I'll carry you the same way, except... His voice softened. You won't be gone. You'll be with me. Ilara set the letters aside. Are you ready? No, but I will be. She took his hand. It's time. They'd planned this moment for years. Location, the clearing where they met. Timing, winter solstice, the longest night. Witnesses, none. This was theirs alone. They walked through snow-laden forest, Kaylin carrying her when she tired, until they reached the clearing. Moonlight turned the snow to silver. Here, Ilara said, kneeling where she'd once knelt to die, where it began. Kaylin knelt beside her, cradling her face. Last chance. We can turn back. You can live your final years in peace. I won't... Kaylin. She smiled. I've lived 50 years in peace. Now I want eternity. With you. His eyes closed. I love you. I have loved you for 5 decades, and I will love you for the rest of time. Then make me timeless. He kissed her. Slow, reverent. Goodbye and hello, tangled together. Then he kissed her neck, feeling the pulse of her mortal heart. It will hurt, he warned. I know. You'll die. One wake up as something new. You'll never see sunrise again. I'll see you. That's enough. Kaylin's fangs descended. Thank you, he whispered, for choosing me. Thank you for finding me. He bit. Pain exploded through Ilara. Fire in her veins, ice in her bones, her heart stopping, lungs collapsing, humanity draining away like water through open hands. She felt herself dying, truly dying, and for a moment, terror gripped her. What have I done? But then, warmth. Kaylin's blood on her lips, copper and starlight, life and death and rebirth. She drank, and the world exploded into sensation colors sharper, sounds richer, her body remaking itself cell by cell. She died, and woke. Ilara gasped, her first breath as something other than human. The world had transformed. She could hear Kalen's heartbeat, slow, ancient, steady. Smell the minerals in the snow, see individual snowflakes suspended in air, each one a geometric miracle. Feel the pull of blood singing in distant villages, a siren call she'd have to learn to resist. And her body, stronger, faster, ageless. She looked at her hands, smooth, unlined, the arthritis gone. Touched her face. The wrinkles erased. Youth restored, but different. Sharper, more defined, carved from moonlight and shadow. Ilara? Kalen's voice was tentative, afraid. She turned to him, and her vision adjusted. She could see him completely now. Not just his beauty, but his soul, every scar, every century, every moment of loneliness that had led him to her. "I see you," she whispered. "All of you." Relief crashed across his features. "How do you feel?" "Like I've been asleep my entire life, and I just woke up." He pulled her into his arms, holding her with a strength that would have broken her human body, but now felt perfect, matched, equal, eternal. "Welcome to forever," he murmured. She laughed, bright, wild, impossible. Show me everything." They spent the first night running through the forest, faster than wind, leaping impossible distances, learning the bounds of her new body. She climbed trees in seconds, caught snowflakes on her tongue and tasted the clouds they came from, heard conversations in villages miles away. "It's overwhelming," she admitted as dawn approached, forcing them back to the castle. "It will be for years, decades even, but you'll adapt." Kalen drew the curtains, blocking the fatal sunrise, "And I'll be here, every step." Ilara turned to him, her new senses drinking him in. The way shadows clung to him like lovers, the ancient power thrumming beneath his skin, the love, oh, the love, radiating from him in waves she could now physically feel. "I chose correctly," she said. "You're certain." "I've never been more certain of anything." She crossed to him, her movements now fluid as water, graceful as death. 50 years mortal, eternity immortal, and every single moment worth it. Kalen kissed her, and it was different now. Equal strength, matched hunger, two immortals learning each other anew. "What do we do now?" Ilara asked when they finally broke apart. "Now," Kalen smiled, that rare, beautiful smile she'd spent centuries earning. "Now we live. We travel. We save others the way I saved you. We fill eternity with purpose. And when the loneliness comes, because it will, we'll face it together." "Together," she echoed. He took her hand, leading her to the window where dawn was breaking. Golden, lethal, beautiful behind thick curtains. "Do you miss it?" he asked quietly. "The sun?" Ilara looked at him. This vampire who'd wrapped a frozen girl in his cloak of shadows, who'd given her 50 years of mortal joy before granting eternity, and smiled. "No," she said simply. "I have you, and you're brighter than any sun." Kalen's laugh was joyous, disbelieving. 5 centuries of existence, and you're the first person to call me bright." Then they weren't looking properly. He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. "Thank you." "For what?" "For staying, for choosing this, for teaching me that immortality isn't a curse when you have someone to share it with." Ilara kissed him softly. "Thank you for finding me in the snow, for refusing to let me die, for showing me that love doesn't make us weak, it makes us eternal." Outside, the sun rose over mountains they could no longer walk in daylight. Inside, 2 vampires stood in shadows, holding each other, wrapped in a cloak of forever. And in the clearing where a frozen girl once begged for death, snow continued to fall, gentle, relentless, eternal. a reminder that even in the coldest darkness, mercy still finds a way to resurrect the damned. Subscribe if you believe mercy can resurrect even the damned. Follow if you choose eternity for love that sees your soul. Comment eternal if you believe some loves are worth dying and waking for. She begged for death in the snow and woke to eternity in his arms. Sometimes the greatest mercy isn't being saved from dying. It's being loved enough to be reborn, blood and mercy, where immortal confessions are born from frozen hearts and ancient souls.